You're on Vision with Matt Prater all across Australia, filling in for Neil Johnson on 2020. And today we're catching up with Bill Muehlenberg from Culture Watch. He's always got some good commentary on the issues of the day. And Bill, you've got a new blog you've released recently called Colonialism and the Voice. Do you want to just unpack that one for us, mate?
Yeah, well, it's certainly all in the news, as you know. Debate in the community, even some Christians having different views, but this one really came out with Jacinta Price, right, the opposition leader, an Aboriginal Affairs senator from Northern Territory, then a very strong no voice to the voice, if you will, along with others, right? There's been quite a few from the community who said, no, this is not helpful, it's actually divisive, it's actually racist. So we've known for a long time where she has stood on this, but for some amazing reason, actually, I think it was the second time now, she was invited to give a speech at the National Press Club in Canberra, of course. So that she did not long ago, and sure enough, caused quite a bit of a stir. Well, not so much because, you know, we already know where she stands, but there is well, we know there's much of the media very strongly secular left pushing all this, you know, full tilt. So sure enough, we had one from The Guardian, which is probably one of our most secular left newspapers. A journalist during Q&A got up and said, well, you know, Jacinta, what about all this horrible colonialism, all the suffering your people and everybody else did at the hands of, well, I'm paraphrasing, right? But the evil West, the evil English, you know, they've done nothing but kill, rape, murder, and destroy. That's, you know, that's the narrative of, well, The Guardian, the left, you know, that colonialism was only always evil, never helped anybody, never did any good. So that was his very leading and, well, misleading question to Jacinta. So everybody was a bit shocked when she came out and said, well, you know, actually, I think on the whole, colonialism did a lot of good for my people. It really helped the Indigenous community, right? We'd still be, what, hunters and gatherers. We'd still be trying to find our food today, trying to stay warm over a fire. I, for one, am very grateful for what the British did. And so that caused a whole shock wave. Of course, the secular left hates this kind of talk, especially when it's coming from a leader of the Indigenous community like Jacinta. So, yeah, that got everybody going. So I spoke more to that. I looked at some new books that have actually come out on the issue of colonialism, which actually fully back up everything she said. So, yeah, it's been an interesting time, and the debate continues.
Well, Bill, can I just draw an interesting comparison out of what you've just said? So I've just been in Papua New Guinea doing some crusades and outreaches over there, and there was a very, very powerful moment where the pastor of the church we were visiting got up and he said, I thank God for the white man. I thank God for the Australians that came and fought in World War II. He said, if it weren't for them, we'd be worshipping false gods in our nation right now. He said, if it weren't for them, we'd still be using stone axes. If it weren't for them, you know. You know, from his point of view, he was just sharing his gratefulness for what the Australians and the British and the Germans have brought to Papua New Guinea. And it was very interesting for me because I'd just come from Australia, where if you listen to the mainstream media, it's all, you know, just saying all these horrible things about how horrible, you know, the white people have been to the Aboriginals in Australia, you know, and that's very much the mainstream narrative that you hear, right?
Sure.
And so for me to go over there and hear that from a Christian pastor saying we're grateful for what the Westerners have brought to our nation, it made me think, I wonder if there's many Australian Aboriginals who'll speak up and say that. And clearly Aboriginal Senator Jacinta Price is one who is grateful for the direction this nation has been heading in because of the blessing that's been brought to this nation.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And there are, as you say, other Aboriginal leaders here in Australia and elsewhere who've said, look, we're grateful, as you say, the gospel was brought. You know, it was a mixed bag. You had some totally secular people coming from the West to exploit a nation, get rich, open trade routes. Sure, everything's a mixed bag in a fallen world, but you had people who loved the Lord, who maybe came on the same boats with some of these traders, who said, we have a heart for the lost. We want to share the good news of the gospel with the people there that we're coming to. So it was always a mixed bag. Some of the even secular people who came had the welfare of the people in mind. We've got good documentation now about the whole situation. Like I say, one of these new books written by an English Christian historian, he said, well, look, again, it's a mixed bag. Some were just greedy, out for gain, wanted to rip off the land. That's always going to happen. But there are many others who, because of their Christian view of things, wanted to help raise the standards of living, wanted to help people come into a better way of life. Sure, we can argue if it's better if you sit around, gathering your meat and, cooking over a fire. In some ways, that's kind of romantic and fun, but there's some things to be said about civilization, running water, electricity. Everything's a mixed bag. Everything's pro and con. So if you have things like the blessings of civilization, sure, you're going to have to take some of the downsides as well. We all know of that, right? In a fallen world, you're always going to get a mix. But on the whole, as some of these historians are saying, on the whole, as Jacinta Price has been saying, and others, hey, it's been, for the most part, a good thing. And I'm grateful, just like your pastor friend had said. So I think we need to keep that in mind, because the narrative we hear, every day, every minute from SBS, ABC, and much of the mainstream media, right? You have to go with the voice. If you don't, you're evil and racist. British colonialism has been an unmitigated disaster, and you have to say no to the whole thing.
And, of course, like you say, Bill, we do admit there's been a lot of terrible things done in the past. There's definitely been a lot of horrible things, and we're not ignoring that. We're not denying that. But we want to make sure that moving forward, we do have a plan. And one of the things that the coalition has been saying, I've heard Peter Dutton say it so many times, he said there's just not enough detail. It's just not clear enough. And if you're unsure, then why would you vote for it, Well, I think that's, that's quite a good point. Like, I've travelled around many Indigenous communities in Australia. I love my Indigenous brothers and sisters in Australia, and I see a lot of the problems. I see a lot of the addictions and the domestic violence and the problems. And I actually think the gospel is the answer. I actually think a move of God and revival is the answer. I don't know if a bunch of politicians is going to fix the problem, to be honest, Bill. What are your thoughts?
No, absolutely. Look, I'm with you. A, the gospel is needed, but B, if you're going to do a radical political change, right, you're saying change the Constitution, even though you already have so much representation, so many people in Parliament who are already giving their voice to the Aboriginal community. It's not as if there's nobody there, right? But yeah, this idea of not knowing what you're voting for, right? Albanese keeps sidetracking this. It's just one page, right? He doesn't want to tell us about the other 24 pages. Look, if you buy a new car, right? You want to test drive. You want to look under the hood. You want to have check things out before you make a big commitment. Buy a new home. Same thing. Give you a very quick story. When we bought our home, went to the bank to do the finance. I said, well, can we check things out? Termites, whatever. You make some basic checks, right, before you sign on the dotted line. And I mentioned, hey, in the back of our home, there's a big hole in the wall, right? What's that all about? And the guy at the bank just kind of laughed, and hey, buddy, you're a rich banker. You can laugh. This is my home. I got to spend zillions of dollars. I'd like to know why there's a stupid hole in my wall, right? You want to know what's in a radical piece of legislation that's going to have all kinds of impacts. Could be treaties coming out of this, reparations. We already know of groups who are being charged now for being on the land, having to pay huge amounts of money. So look, these are details we need to know about. And if the government's not going to be forthcoming, well, then Australians have every good reason to be very hesitant about saying yes to something they really don't know about, and the state is not too happy to tell us about.
Now, Bill, I want to ask you a personal question as well. So, as a pastor, I've got a congregation and I need to be careful, when I raise a topic in my church or even on social media, because there's bound to be some in my church that are for it and some that are against it. And, we need to be wise and not be divisive. However, I've seen a lot of pastors posting their opinions about this on Facebook. And, as you know, you get the keyboard warriors for and against, arguing and discussing things like this. And, as you know, Bill, I like speaking up for lots of things. You've heard me speak up on different things in the past, What's your advice to Christians about speaking up about this topic? Because, as you know, you get branded a racist or you get branded as divisive or whatever. What's your advice about, should we speak up on this topic or should we pick our battles and, just be quiet and let the politicians have their say? What are your thoughts?
Look, good questions. Well, look, sure, we do need wisdom. Picking battles is important. There's plenty of battles out there. So if we wade into every single one, you wouldn't eat or sleep, I guess. But, this is an important issue, no question about it. And, it's going to have huge impacts if it goes through. Absolutely. So in this case, I think Christians have to think and pray carefully about, how are we going to vote? How should my church congregation vote? Sure, you're always going to find some people upset no matter what you do, yes or no.
Yeah.
Again, just a very quick sidestep here. I've been asked to speak to a bunch of young people on marriage and family, which I'll do soon. I'll have to say the basics. What does the Bible teach? Marriage between a man and a woman. Best thing for a child is to have a mother and a father. Yeah. Every year that goes by, I know I'm going to have more and more young kids in my audience, right? Raised probably in a single parent family. I could be stepping on toes simply to say the ideal is to have a mom and a dad cemented by marriage. That is the ideal. There's no question about it. But is it going to hurt some people, offend some young people? Yeah, it will. So what do? Zip the lip and never say it? Or do I try to say it in a gracious manner? Say, look, if you're young, single mom, guess what? Your mother needs all the help and support she can get. She has twice the load, half the, hands to do the work. So we need to support single mothers, right? So that's a way you can say it without condemning the person and yet still upholding the Christian ideal. In that case, marriage and family. In this case, hey, racism is wrong wherever it comes from, right? Yeah. I'm always reminded 60 years ago, almost exactly 60 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr., right, had his very famous talk in Washington. I had a dream speech. What did he say? I have a dream that my 4 little children one day will live in a nation where they'll not be judged, right, by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Seems to me the voice is exactly overturning that. Let's start judging people on the basis of their skin color. Hey, we're all Australians. Jacinta Price believes that. I believe that. Why do we need a new separate recognition of a new separate group of people that have been here for so long? Have there been some past wrongs? Yeah, we can apologize. And, we've already had, right? National Sorry Days, the whole bit. Could we do things better? Sure. And as you say, the opposition is looking for various ways to do recognition, which will not be so divisive, not be so racist. So I'm actually with Martin Luther King Jr. here and Jacinta and others. This will just cause more division, not less.
Well, Bill, it's always good to hear your perspective on these things, and I want to draw people's attention towards this new blog. It's called Colonialism and the Voice. What Jacinta Price said about colonialism in Australia deserves to be heard. It's a great blog. It's available at billmuehlenberg.com, or you can search up the Culture Watch website. You're also on social media. It's always a privilege to be able to have a chat with you, Bill. You're a great man of God. I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Many thanks.